Joining us now is Dr. Shael Ben Ephraim, former UCLA professor, diplomat, expert in military strategy, and host of the History of the Land of Israel podcast and the Israel Palestine Report YouTube channel. Shael, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be on.
Okay, you've gone through quite the transformation. Before we get into everything that's going on over in Israel Palestine right now, where are you? Last time we've seen you really have this major transformation from when you first appeared on the show. You called yourself a liberal Zionist, I think is what it was, right? So you were very firm on Zionism. Um, you wanted there to be a Jewish nation, a Jewish home, but you also wanted there to be humanity for the Palestinians. I think that's where kind of where you were. Is that a good, accurate where you started?
Yeah, very, very accurate.
Okay. And now it's been how long? I mean, we're approaching, is it approaching 2 years this October? Or are we approaching three of this war?
Approaching 2 years.
2 year. Okay. Approaching 2 years next month. Ugh.
That's right.
Um, okay. In this 2 years time, you've had quite the transformation where, and last time we had you on, you were saying, yes, it's a genocide. At first it was kind of, no, it's not a genocide. This is a war. And then it kind of went, okay, there's some war crimes that are happening, and then it kind of went into, okay, yes, it's a genocide. And now, you're like, you're going all out on social media. Uh, you are very prominently I mean, tell us where you're at today. Are you a Zionist anymore?
No, no, I don't consider myself a Zionist anymore. I feel like the two things that I was trying to harmonize, Zionism and concern for Palestinian lives, just don't work together. The Zionist movement is based on a continuous attempt to eradicate the Palestinian people. And it's something that I tried to repress. Um, telling myself that it's always certain Zionists, it's a stream in Zionism, so on and so forth. But ultimately, when you look at the trajectory of what Zionism has done and where the movement is at today, there's really no escaping that. And I increasingly felt like calling myself a liberal Zionist was providing a fig leaf for these policies that I deeply disagree with, just to help them say, "Oh, look, there's Zionists among us who, want peace and who care about Palestinian lives. Look, there's Shael over there." And then, meanwhile, they spend the rest of their time attacking people like me and calling us traitors and so on, because they don't really respect or have any use for the idea that Palestinians are equal human beings that need to be treated as such. So, in order to promote that element that's always been incredibly important to me, I felt like I had to break with the Zionist movement. And also, I've had a real awakening about its history and a lot of things that I'd repressed. I've had to deal with, and it becomes very difficult to deny when you see what Israel is doing in Gaza, and also when you start linking it to previous policies that Israel had that were very similar, that foreshadowed this uh, in various ways. So technically, the term Zionist doesn't mean all that much. It means wanting there to be a homeland for Jews
Hmm.
in the land, which I'm still fine with. But the movement itself has gone in a very different direction, or has always been in a very different direction. That a description doesn't actually capture what the movement is and does in practice. And what the
Right.
movement is and does in practice is something that I don't want to have anything to do with.
Wow. Um, has this been, I mean, this must have been a tough journey for you.
Yeah, it's been very difficult. I don't want to exaggerate the difficulty, compared to what people are going through in Gaza or so on.
Sure.
Uh, but it's been very difficult. I've faced a lot of backlash from my community. There's been a lot of attempts to not allow me to ever visit Israel again, and so on and so forth. I honestly don't know if I tried to go into the country now, if I'd
What?
be let in. Yeah,
Aren't you Israeli?
yeah, but then the question is, do they consider me a security risk? It's et cetera, et cetera. I don't know what happens if I go back. There's a lot of people who've tried to, start petitions, report, so on and so forth, including the famous Betar movement, who have gotten people deported, like Mahmoud Khalil and so on and so forth, have been trying to do that. I've lost friends. My family has been more understanding, although I've had some tough discussions with them as well. Death threats, nothing compared to what you're facing. Um, I
I
had
mean,
to
I
go.
think we all get it. I think we all, I think it's just par for the course,
Well, one
unfortunately.
death threat I had to go to the police because it was pretty serious because they knew where I lived and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. Two cases actually like that, but nothing like what you're experiencing.
I mean, I think with
Yeah.
anybody, yeah, I mean, people, I mean, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's actually still pretty frightening and scary. And, but at the same time, I think at the end of the day, most people are, I mean, it always just takes one crazy, right? But I think it's probably more frightening riding a subway these days, to be honest with you, than speaking up against Israel. So tell me, with your family members, I I mean, one of the reasons why I've always loved having discussions with you is because we can disagree. And just like we did 2 years ago, nearly 2 years ago when you first appeared on the show, and you know, we can disagree, but you're a reasonable person to have a conversation with. So to me it makes sense that you're, because you are a smart guy and you're reasonable, that you would eventually come to different you would reason through things rather than emotionally holding on to things. um and most people hold on emotionally to ideas, even in the face of mounting evidence, right? They'll still hold on to whatever it is that their emotions are. um so how do you, I mean, you clearly saw yourself get to this journey. Have you been able to get anybody else to where you are today?
Yes, a
You have, okay.
a surprising amount of people have come along with me. I can't tell you. It's hard for me to say how much influence I have on this process, but have come along with me on this journey. Some people that have really surprised me. Uh, my father is a good example of someone who came from liberal Zionism like myself, and we found ourselves moving very closely aligned. I think I've definitely helped him along somewhat on a process he was probably going down anyway.
Okay.
Um, just the other day, I met an Israeli childhood friend who is fairly senior in the army, um, and he, without me even bringing it up, said, I've been thinking about a lot of the things you've been saying and posting, and I agree. I see it from the inside. I believe that we're committing genocide, and I believe that Israel is becoming a deeply immoral country at its
uh
basis. He just brought it up. I wasn't gonna talk about it too much because I thought we'd probably end up arguing, and he just brought that up. And a couple of close friends here in LA have also um, kind of flipped over that time. I find that my close circle, which mostly include liberal Zionists, a good deal of them now agree with me
wow.
on on this. Yeah, holding on to actual liberal Zionism in the sense of what it really was or thought it was, with an actual concern for Palestinians, and that's the kind of people that I gravitated towards, is a very difficult um, prospect when Israel is slaughtering all
Yeah.
these children every single day. There's a lot of people who pretend that they're liberal or use liberal as some sort of fig leaf, and were never really truly liberal, for whom it's very easy. And those are a lot of the people who have been most angry at me. But the people who used to show genuine concern for Palestinians, a lot of them have joined me. And I get emails from Israelis, often even, telling me that they either I convince them, or they agree with me, or I speak for them, or so on and so forth. Now, they're not a very large percentage of the population, but they're out there, they're pretty loud, and they are growing.
And it's growing, and that's the best part, right? It's might be slow,
Well,
but
I do want to say that while they are growing, the genocidal element of Israeli society is growing even quicker. So what's kind of
uh
disappearing is the kind of squishy middle. You know, the classic Israeli liberal Zionist who says, I care about the Palestinians, but we have no choice but to continue the occupation. Those kind of people, they're disappearing. They're being replaced by either genocide is great, or, Palestinians lie about everything. We're not actually doing anything wrong. And, Israel's committing war crimes. Israel's committing genocide. Israel's becoming illegitimate, but at a rate that favors those who are pro-genocide. So, the way there's more extremism here in America, there's more extremism over there. Yeah, unfortunately, the rates aren't favoring us. But yeah, I see more people Jews saying extreme things against Israel now than ever before in Israel. It's just that they're vastly outnumbered.
Okay. And the other side's growing faster.
Other side's growing faster. They also have the
Yeah.
demographics. The religious Orthodox and the religious Zionists, and also the sort of periphery towns where they have mostly the Quds supporters, have higher demographic reproduction rates and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, the more liberal populations, not only do they have fewer children, they also increasingly leave, like the way I did. Um, a lot of people I know who are like me are thinking, I don't want to raise my children in this country. I want to leave to here. I want to leave to there, and are leaving.
Yeah.
So it seems kind of doomed in that regard.
What about in the United States? Jews in the United States. I mean, I was recently in LA, and when I was living in LA, I lived in an Israeli Jewish neighborhood. A lot of Israeli immigrants that had come over, practically everybody I knew. But and I visited many, very good friends with many, and went and had lunch with them, and visited old friends. And yeah, they were a bit more genocidal than they were when I left, kind of a thing. The word there was a lot of the finish them type talk, a lot of that kind of celebrate the finish them. Um, are you experiencing that? I mean, but granted, the circle that I'm in, this is not American. I mean, they're American Jews, but they're also heavily Israeli American Jews, right? So they have a bit of a different, maybe, um, thinking and psyche than maybe your average American Jew that just grew up here, and maybe they do their bar mitzvah in Israel, but that's like kind of the extent of it, right?
Yeah, so you've hit on an important point. There is no unified Jewish community in the United States, and no one knows that better than Angelinos, right? Because
Right.
In New York, you can feel like, oh, the Jewish community is just a bunch of Ashkenazi left-wing Jews, and that's a big part of it.
Right.
But in LA, you see it's much more than that. You have those people here, but then you also have a very large Israeli community, and you have a
Yeah.
very large Persian Jewish
Yeah.
community.
Huge
And
Persian Jewish
yeah,
community too.
and the
Yeah.
Persian Jewish community and the Israeli Jewish community are very right wing. They were very right wing before October 7th, and October 7th, did to them what it did to the Israeli population more widely. It made them far more extreme. We saw when there were protests at UCLA that they even attacked the protesters. These are people who are very, extreme, and but they're not the majority of the. They can seem like the majority in LA, but they're not the majority of the Jewish community throughout the United States. The biggest community is still in New York City, and
Hmm.
Washington D.C. has a big community, and
And
so on and so forth.
Florida.
Florida is more similar to L.A., but
Okay.
if you take it all together, there's still Ashkenazi left wing is still the dominant stream, and of course you have the ultra Orthodox Jews. In the United States, I think ultimately among the Ashkenazi Jews, you're going to see a divorce from Israel. Uh, the older people to whom Israel is very emotionally resonant and significant will probably never give it up, but they're going to become less and less over the years. And younger people to whom Israel is only genocide, only embarrassment, are increasingly going to want to divorce themselves from it, partially out of self-preservation, because it increases the incidence of anti-Semitism. It puts Jews here at risk. It will eventually make them ostracized in all elite communities. We see what's happening in academia. We see what's happening in Hollywood. It's very slow, but it's irreversible, in my opinion. So we're going to see more and more people divorced from Israel. It'll be too little, too late, and it'll be out of self-preservation. But it's happening. The older you are, the more you remember a different Israel, or at least the illusion of a different Israel. Even
Hmm.
me, I'm in my 40s. I remember the Oslo process. People in their 30s don't. And that's a big difference.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.